For more on the claims number and the unemployment picture in this country, let's bring in U.S. Labor Secretary Eugene Scalia. Secretary Scalia, thank you for joining us this morning.
A pleasure to be with you.
The numbers were bad this morning. We expected bad numbers. We know what's been happening as we've forcibly shut down the country. But where do you think we head from here?
Well, these are tough numbers to see. I agree. What it means is in total over the last 6 weeks that we've been looking at, unemployment claims are at about 30 million. It's just a very high number. But a couple quick notes about it. One, the president, Congress moved very swiftly in March to address this, including with the unemployment enhancements made in the CARES Act. As of last Tuesday, all 50 states and the District of Columbia are now paying that additional $600 supplement that the president signed off on in the CARES Act. So that's valuable relief that's on the way. The states, as your lead-in said, they've got some old computer systems, but we are working with them at the Labor Department to help get these payments out. And then the second point that I do think is important, as difficult as it is to see this many Americans unemployed, we came into this period of unemployment by a very different path than, say, in the Great Recession. And we'll go out by a different path, and there's some reason for optimism there, too.
Mr. Secretary, Steve Leisman asked the right question. Is the PPP working? What would these numbers be without it?
Well, I think the PPP is one of the best things in the CARES Act. As you know, that's the program of loans for small businesses where the loans are largely forgivable if the businesses keep those workers on payroll. From the perspective of the Labor Department, the reason I like that program so much is that there's light at the end of this tunnel. We purposely paused our economy, but the pause was meant to be temporary. And if we can keep these employment relationships intact, then workers can get back on the job more quickly, businesses can get going more quickly. So I think the program's been a really great success, despite some of the sniping that it's come in for. And I have no doubt that it's helped keep some people out of unemployment.
Mr. Secretary, as Labor Secretary, part of your mandate, obviously, is to make sure that you are looking out for the rights and the welfare of workers, too. We start to hear business leaders like Elon Musk who are out there saying he thinks it's wrong that the states have shut down his business, that he should be allowed to bring them back. Anybody who wants to come out and leave their home should be allowed to. What's your response to something like that when you hear a business leader talking out loud about how he'd rather have his workers back and shouldn't be forced by the state to not have them there?
Well, I think it's right for people to go back to their business places as the governors make those determinations in accordance with the blueprint the president laid out a couple weeks ago. You're right. We at the Labor Department have a strong interest in protecting workers, both those who are out of work, but also those who are on the job and could be exposed to the virus. And I've been working very closely, really for months now, with the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, on a couple fronts. One is giving guidelines to business, industry-specific guidelines. We did it for meatpacking together with CDC earlier this week. We've done it, again, working with CDC on other industries, and we'll continue to do that so that companies and workers know what's needed to keep them safe. But we're also fielding complaints from workers. We are investigating when there are concerns by workers that conditions are unsafe. And we have tools, including enforcement tools, that we'll use if we need to protect workers. And that message is an important one for people to hear.
Well, the meatpacking industry, that was going to be my next question. The president obviously has insisted that the meatpacking industry stay open because they're vital to the national supply chains. But those were shut down. Those packing facilities were shut down because there had been hundreds of cases of coronavirus that had been circulated. What have you heard from the workers in those meatpacking industries? What are you doing on that front?
Well, as I said, we worked closely with the Centers for Disease Control in putting out guidelines. I think they came out last Sunday about how to safely operate those plants and social distancing, all kinds of hygiene practices, changes in how they run their conveyor lines and the like, which will help protect workers. But it's going to require constant attention. The companies are going to need to pay attention to worker welfare. At the same time, We know that this is a critical part of our infrastructure, part of our food supply that we need to keep available in a way that's safe for the food supply and absolutely safe for workers too. And we will, as I said, continue to look into concerns employees raise and consult with CDC.
You said that you've been looking in and investigating some of these complaints. Where are you receiving the most complaints? What geographic areas and what industries?
Well, as you'd expect, healthcare, there's been a lot of concerns there. That's been a source of complaints and focus on the part of OSHA. Emergency responders to some extent, and meatpacking. One of the many extraordinary things about this period we're going through right now is how much it can change in just a period of a few days. Meatpacking 2-3 weeks ago was not on most people's radar as a hot spot. It became one. Just as healthcare was earlier. So we will keep looking at different industries where conditions may be getting more problematic. And again, we will also continue to provide industry-specific guidance that helps workers and employers know what's going to make for a safe environment. They want that confidence. They want that assurance. As we reopen, we're going to give it to them, and we are going to use the tools that we have, which are, I think, effective tools to make sure that employers are protecting their workers as we reopen.
Every CEO we've spoken with have said that in order to bring their workers back, they're going to need to do things like make sure that they get more protective equipment for their employees, to make sure that they have testing, adequate testing, so that they can ensure that the workforce feels confident and comfortable and that there aren't cases circulating. Obviously, there's a limited number of all of those things. And if every single CEO is trying to get his or her hands on all of that, I just wonder, do you get involved with that process? Do you say that there are certain industries that should be put to the front of the line that are more important to get back faster?
Well, I think that the task force, the president, vice president, and the governors have recognized certain industries that need special attention because they're so vital, critical to the American people and our economy, and that focus is appropriate. I participated in the president, vice president's meeting yesterday with some executives, and I really continue to be impressed by the steps that companies want to take to protect their workers. I think it's a good sign. Business leaders are recognizing that their customers want to feel safe, their workers want to feel safe. We want to help them in that enterprise, but I also recognize that not every business is going to know the right thing to do or sometimes be inclined to do the right thing. And so we'll be vigilant in looking into that front as well.